So let's talk some more about shutdown of A-50 and related issues. So did Ukrainians deploy Patriot surface-to-air system to shoot down the Russian A-50 aircraft? Because Russians can't stop claiming that it was their own surface-to-air missile that shot at their own aircraft. So now it is not 100% confirmed about Patriot, but it is most likely. The situation is very similar to the one when Ukrainian armed forces deployed their Patriots to ambush a pair of Russian fighter bombers. You can see here. And two electronic warfare helicopters back in May 2023. On the picture, the most likely scenario described by the famous Austrian analyst Tom Cooper. And he described it, and then few weeks later the following photo appeared, confirming the theory that it was Patriot that shot down Russian aircraft in Bryansk Oblast. This is the photo of the kill signs on the Patriot launcher, and you can see Su-34, Su-30 and 3 helicopters that were shot down in May of 2023 in Bryansk Oblast, and you can see the date here, 13th of May 2023. And depending on the version, and there are multiple versions, the Patriot has a maximum range of 160 kilometers, as nicely explained here. Also, this diagram is showing just the 3 variants most likely to have been delivered to Ukraine, and some have meanwhile been identified and thus confirmed as delivered on basis of photographs showing their wreckage. And please keep in mind that each of these versions has a different purpose, and thus it has different range and different flight characteristics. So the Russian A-50 plane was shot down some 90 to 100 kilometers away from the nearest Ukrainian positions. So it was within range of the Patriot system, provided that Ukrainian air forces did deploy at least one launcher, one fire control radar, and the necessary power supply closely enough. But that said, right now it is still not 100% confirmed that it was Ukrainian Patriot PAC-2 or PAC-3 variant that killed the Russian A-50. Thus it is perfectly possible that we actually deployed one of our S-300s for this purpose. These are still around, they are still operational and frequently involved in defending Ukraine from Russian attacks. So, the point is, Patriot is in service since the early 1980s, and theoretically, Russian military intelligence GRU had ages to spy all the possible details about it, especially considering that for much of the last 30 years, the Russians were considered friends by the mass of European NATO partners, especially Germans. And but from what is going on in Ukraine of the last year, since Patriots were deployed in combat by the Ukrainian Air Force, it is obvious that the Russians either do not understand the system and its performances, or do not know everything about it, or maybe some of its latest variants remain a secret for them. And why it is obvious? Because time and again, and as illustrated at the beginning of this video, the Patriots is taking them, Russians, by surprise, and then causing them heavy losses. It is also possible that the United States and Germany and other donors of the Patriot systems to Ukraine, they have introduced different modifications. And keep in mind that already the first time Patriots were deployed in combat back during the war in Persian Gulf in 1991, the core essence of its capability to engage ballistic missiles was actually a software update. And the system and its missiles had theoretical capability to engage incoming ballistic missiles, but the system and the missiles, they needed the software explaining them how to do that. But nowadays, when Patriots have much more advanced hardware, applying software updates is also much easier. And keep in mind that a mass of such modifications is likely to remain entirely unknown to the GRU, at least for the time being. And for comparison, the S-300 is based on older technology, and it is completely known to the Russians because it is their own product. And even if it was modified in Ukraine, just remember how many Ukrainians have turned out to be working for the GRU or the FSB so far. And Ukraine is at least as leaky in this regard as all of NATO. And it means that the secrets of Ukrainian modification of S-300s are anything else than secure. They are a lot less likely to take Russians by surprise than Patriot systems. And that in turn is one of the reasons why Ukrainian Patriots can or is more likely to time and again take the Russians by surprise, and why this was most probably the ambush by Patriot system deployed in that so-called assault mode. I mean, one launcher, one fire control unit, and a power supply for them. Another question is, does Patriot surface-to-air missile system need to continuously illuminate the target with its radar until its missile either hits or misses the target? In other words, does Patriot need to continuously keep its radar powered up? And this is a very important question. The answer is as follows. It depends on whether it was PAC-2 or PAC-3, and then it depends on the missile variant. The centerpiece of the Patriot surface-to-air system is the fire control radar. In the PAC-2 system, this serves the purpose of continuously tracking the target and thus, through echoes of its radar emissions from the target, guiding its missiles towards them. You can see here, this is not the Patriot, but the principle is the same. So it is illuminating the target, then echoes are received by the missiles, and it homes on echoes. So and in the military jargon, this is called semi-active homing. The missiles has no radar, but they have seeker heads that are capable of tracking radar echoes from the target. But the latest PAC-3 missiles, like 104D or 104E, they have their own radar systems installed internally. So it means the missile is fired on the basis of data collected by the fire control radar, then it flies closer to the target, and then it activates its own radar system to find the target, and then it tracks, and then it hits or it misses the target. And this is called active radar homing. The missile has its own radar that then eliminates the target and receive echoes and homes on the echoes from their own radar. So how to recognize PAC-2 from PAC-3? The PAC-2 missile variants are bigger than PAC-3, and only 4 can be placed on a single launcher, like here. PAC-3 missiles are smaller, and up to 16 can be placed on the same launcher. And to make matters even more complex, one can combine PAC-2 and PAC-3 missiles on the same launcher. And of course, there are different sub-variants of PAC-2 or PAC-3 missiles, depending on the type of the action the operator is expecting. So now why is this question about the semi-active radar homing or active radar homing of PAC-2 or PAC-3 missile so important? Because in the case of PAC-2 and its missiles, with semi-active radar homing, the firing unit has to keep fire control radar essentially powered up all the time during the flight of the missile. If the fire control radar is not powered up and not illuminating the target, the missile seeker head has nothing to, it's not receiving any echoes from radars, and it has nothing to home upon. And it means that radar is emitting all the time during the engagement, which in turn means that it is emitting a lot and is near certain that it will be detected by the Russians. And after that, Russians are likely to act against it, for example, with the help of their hypersonic Ha-31 anti-radar missiles. And the seeker head of these missiles is made to home on the radar emissions. But in the case of PAC-3, the missile has its own radar, like it is here. It means that fire control radar needs to be powered up just for several seconds. And it depends on engagement range, so it is from 15 to 30 seconds. It is just long enough to emit signals that are going to reach the target, return then to antenna, and it will be then processed by systems so that the fire control unit knows the azimuth of the target and the approximate altitude. The fire control radar is then switched off, preferably before Russians even know it is around. And still the PAC-3 can fire its missiles. They are made to approach the target and then turn their own radar autonomously. In this case, the fire control radar is not emitting as long or so heavily, and thus it is harder to detect for Russian electronic support measures, which also explains the Russian confusion about what got the Su-30, Su-34 and helicopters back in May 2023, or what killed the A-50 recently. And also keep in mind that it's similar in regards of the Russian S-300 and S-400 surface-to-air missile systems. They also have different variants and sub-variants of missiles, each with its own range and other flight performances, and each with different seeker head. So I think this is enough for today. Thank you very much for watching, and Slava Ukraini!